Welcome to this week's Tarot Snapshot. This is a 3-card reading, about a 10-minute video where I find it a privilege and an honor to channel spirit and the messages that I receive from tarot in my own way, in my own particular, marching to my own drum beat. Now, this Tarot Snapshot is a 3-card reading where we find out who we are. We find out what vexes and perplexes us. We find out what heals and reveals. Now, give me a moment. I was going to use a regular tarot, and then I was like, oh, I got the Halloween tarot. Let's get into this. I want to talk to you about something. As I am called to listen to spirit, something that I want to remind everybody in their lives. We all have, unfortunately, just the nature of the world, we have unwell people all around us. People that are in our lives. People that just intersect randomly with us. These are mentally ill people, unwell, nefarious people. People that are jealous. People that can't stand the light that you bring to the world. As a person who does what I do, I can certainly relate to that. I have a group of mentally ill stalkers who, for years now, have tried to bring me down. And I want to introduce you to the idea of alchemy. Alchemy is the idea that no matter how hard somebody throws crap on your lap, you just take it and you turn it into gold, no matter what happens. You don't let the bastards grind you down. Now, there's a deep satisfaction in that because they'll try. Now, you might have narcissistic parents, you might have manipulative exes, you might have poisonous siblings, or what have you. I want you to remember alchemy is taking a base metal, turning it into gold. That art of taking the crap and making the best out of it. So, when unhealthy people cross my path, they do everything I can to just minimize their impact by minimizing my exposure to them. That's, I think, a really powerful message. There's so much power in staying in our own lane. So much power in staying in our own lane. There's a local psychic who told somebody one time that I cursed her client and then charged that client all sorts of money to undo the curse that was never put upon her. There are manipulative predators in this world. And not only is there peace in staying in our own lane, but there's peace in never expecting ourselves out of other people. Now, if you're a person of integrity, honor, dependability, and you wouldn't do the things that awful people did to you, that's fair, but let's not expect our heart out of other people. No. The card that represents us today from the Halloween Tarot is this. The 9 of Bats. I love it. The 9 of Bats is the 9 of Swords. This is the Nightmare card. Really, really, really appropriate for what I was just talking about. The nightmare doesn't exist. It's all in your mind. It doesn't exist. It's all in your mind. That's an appropriate message for this, because how many people in our world would want to cause us nightmares? How many people have exes and friends and strangers and all sorts of that? There are so many people out there that would cause us terror. Now, before I get into the next cards, I want to introduce you to a fun idea because it's Halloween time. I've mentioned this over the past week, but I want to talk to you about the idea of the final girl. Now, the final girl is this trope from horror movies, but you'll find it in other movies. This is like Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. This is Ripley from the Aliens movies, or Sidney Prescott from the Scream movie. This is the girl, the final girl, who ends up at the end beating the monster. Now, I'm a kid of the 80s, loved horror movies and scare movies growing up. I love Nightmare on Elm Street. I did. One of the most powerful scenes ever is that the final girl at the end of that movie, Freddy was going to get her, put his claws out to her, and she just said, "I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm not afraid of you anymore." Imagine if the only power people could hold over you is the amount of fear that they could instill in you when it's an illusion. It's a nightmare. It doesn't exist. greatest thing that you could ever do to the things that haunt you is to just stop fearing them. Because it's ridiculous. In my case, anyways. Now, you might actually have people in your world that you need to fear, and I'm going to recommend that you keep yourself safe, you work with authorities, you do whatever you can to maintain your safety. But most often, the monsters that are under our bed don't exist and have no power over us. The card that vexes and perplexes us with the nightmares is the Three of Cups. Now, this is a cup of joy, or a card of joy. It might be hard to find joy in the face of having a nightmare, right? I get that. We might be consumed with all that we're afraid of, whether it's just general anxiety or worry. A message that I get over and over again is, what good is fear going to do for you? Now, if you're in the woods and a bear is chasing you, maybe fear would be useful. But what good does hypervigilance do for us? And hypervigilance is that idea that if we're constantly afraid of everything that could ever happen to us, maybe we can get in front of it and prevent it. Well, there's a difference between having caution and having worry. Worry generally doesn't accomplish anything. And when we worry too much, joy would vex and perplex us. The Three of Ghosts, or the Three of Cups. Now, I also see the Three of Cups, or the Three of Ghosts, as like the three fates. Now, fate can sometimes vex and perplex us because let's take this idea of this mentally ill group of people who like to stalk me. When I crossed paths with them, yeah, it was pretty awful. But what I learned about myself and learned about other people was invaluable. And I'm so happy that I went through it because it created a stronger version of me. How often would I say to a client, I know the divorce sucked, but maybe you'd never find out who you really were if you hadn't gone through that turmoil. And we like the idea of destiny and happy ever after and kindness in the world of spirit. There is kindness and love, absolutely. But sometimes we're put through scenarios, not all awful scenarios, but some awful scenarios that are fated so that we can become a better version of ourselves. That is just the cold, hard facts of this world. So, not only do we have a difficult time finding joy that we would see in the Three of Cups, sometimes it doesn't make sense that when fate pushes us through something, it's difficult to get through it. But yet, think about how many things in your past you've gone through that when you get to the other side of them, maybe it takes some distance to get there. You're like, man, I know it sucked going through it, but I'm really happy I did. The card that heals and reveals is the Three of Pumpkins, or the Three of Pentacles. This is using the wisdom of the past to build for the future. That really leans into what I've just talked about. The idea of red flags. Sometimes you gotta go through a few of them to understand what they are. This is that idea that the only way you'll really ever gain wisdom is through experience. Isn't wisdom invaluable? And if experience is the only way you'll get that, isn't that experience worth it? That's something that we all have to hold on to. Now, this is extrapolating, if you will, extracting the wisdom out of those scenarios. So, in that way, I got stalkers who for years have, crossed my path. All right. I'm not a victim of them, I'm just a student. People who could lean into their idea of victimhood. I look at myself as a student of people, a student of life, a student of the lowest forms and the most mentally ill people that are out there, how sad and pitiful they are, while I just continue to shine brightly and do the best I can and finding peace in my own lane. So take out of this message what works for you, leave what doesn't, but walk in love, walk in strength, and make sure that you're your own final girl. Don't walk in fear. Walk in love.